Story 1, The Walmart Night Shifts. A few years ago, during what was likely the darkest chapter of my life, I worked overnight shifts at a Walmart supercenter in rural West Virginia, 6 nights a week from p.m. to a.m. I stocked everything from fishing lures to makeup. It was soul-crushing work, a fluorescent-lit void where apathy died. Let's be real, Walmart already has a creepy undercurrent to it. But this 24-hour outpost amplified it. In the dead of night, it drew a parade of locals, meth heads, and opioid zombies wandering the aisles scavenging for forgotten deals. No security guards patrolled. And I would later learn that most of the cameras, especially those in the parking lot, had been glitchy for months, if not years. As one of the few young women who worked on the overnight crew, I attracted plenty of unwanted attention. But the standout was this guy who materialized every time I stepped out for a smoke break. No matter the hour, a.m., 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 he would round the corner within seconds, launching into chatter like we had planned it or something. It really didn't matter which of the entrances I used, he was always there. At first, I figured that he was an employee who also would be hanging around a dingy box store in the witching hours. Most of us smoked during our 2 15-minute breaks, so the coincidence seemed plausible. But this wasn't the case. He didn't work there. He would just mimic the overnight uniform by wearing dark blue t-shirts. I quit going out alone, sticking to breaks with guy friends from the crew, including one that I had known since middle school. But even that didn't faze him, and it turned into an inside joke across the store. I was unsettled but not panicked until my stalker ramped things up. He'd grill me about my relationship status and would ask me about it every chance he got. I was deep into GTA 5 then, so I spun a yarn about my terrifying long-distance boyfriend Trevor from Northern California. Hey, it fit the vibe. But he just shrugged it off. Eventually, I dropped the niceties and started ghosting him mid-sentence. One night, my go-to guy had called out sick and the others were tied up across the store. I headed out with 2 older women from my crew. They finished quickly and went inside. I lingered for a final drag, and just as I turned to follow, he popped up. Looking back, it wouldn't be crazy to assume that he was in a car, scoping out the entrances with a pair of binoculars. He grabbed my hand, not a vice grip, but firm enough. "Come to my car real quick. I want to show you something." I'm not hot-tempered by nature, but my rage boiled over. I yanked free and bolted inside, my heart pounding in my chest. I stormed to the head manager and spilled it all. It turns out my stalker had a cousin on the unloading crew in the back, which was his excuse for loitering. The cousin was mortified, swearing that he'd handle it, but management useless. No warning, no banishment, just shrugs and says, not our problem. I quit soon after, not over the stalking directly, more so the brass's incompetence. A friend of mine later clued me in. The guy kept lurking around nightly, shifting his creep routine to another woman. He hounded folks for weeks after I left, desperate for my name and address. Then one day, he disappeared. To this day, I still fixate on those busted-out parking lot cameras and wonder if on one of those endless exhausting nights, would anyone have noticed if I had just vanished. I'm 32 now and this happened over a decade ago, but it still keeps me awake at night. Story 2, The Woman with the Camera by the River. I am a 20-year-old woman and this event occurred 4 years ago when I was around 16. It was during the late autumn between my sophomore and junior years of high school. I've encountered several unsettling situations living in West Virginia, but this remains one of the most disturbing. I'll recount the events as accurately as I can. This happened in Cherry River just before it flows into Nicholas County. My friend and I drove separately and met at a pull-off along the main road to do some fishing. Next to the pull-off was a place called State Road Garage. It was enclosed by a fence that required a key for entry. At the time, I didn't know its purpose, but later research revealed that it belongs to the West Virginia Department of Transportation. To the left of the building is a short trail that led down to the river. That evening, the garage appeared to be deserted with no cars or workers in sight. The only vehicle we noticed was a weathered pickup truck, possibly an old Silverado with a camper shell on the back. I can vividly recall the 3 deadbolt locks securing the camper shell to the frame and 2 very unsettling individuals sitting in the front. The truck was parked far into the trail's entrance on rough terrain while we parked by the main road. We didn't want to risk getting stuck. This immediately put me on edge, as I've been watching true crime and scary stories on YouTube since I was 11. This scene felt like the opening of a horror story. From what I recall, the drug's occupants were a disheveled blonde woman who appeared worn down and possibly missing teeth, and a greasy long-haired man and a wife beater. Crackheads are never able to hide their addiction that well. As we passed their truck on the way to the river, they locked eyes with us, staring intently. My friend seemed less concerned than I was. I tend to be a bit paranoid, naturally. Strange characters are common to our area. Most of them are harmless, but I never let my guard down. My friend mentioned that she should call her boyfriend, who lived 20 minutes away, if anything happened, though I wasn't sure how that would help in the moment. We began fishing and my friend caught a rock bass. Not long after, we heard footsteps and looked up to see the woman from the truck approaching the riverbank. She looked rough. She may have been an attractive woman once upon a time, but the prolonged drug use had taken its toll. Her teeth were severely damaged, giving her jaw that sunken appearance, and her skin resembled a crumpled-up paper bag. She was holding a red Kodak camera. When she got to the riverbank, she asked, "Can you tell me your first and last name and ages?" She then told us that she was taking photos for a newspaper. My alarm bells were going off big time. My friend and I had made plenty of poor decisions in our teens, but I was always weary of strangers, especially in this context. But I panicked and gave my first name, but lied about my age, subtracting just 1 year, a pointless fib that wouldn't have mattered if our details were being collected. I didn't give my last name, and I can't recall what my friend said. The woman then asked, "Can I take your picture?" Despite my unease, I was a people pleaser and reluctantly agreed. She snapped our photo and started back toward her truck. Tripping on the rocks as she went, my friend and I stifled giggles at the odd encounter. A short time later, my friend's fishing line broke and we headed back to our cars. To my frustration, halfway back, she told me that she had forgotten her tackle box by the river. Every instinct screamed not to go back, but I knew it wasn't a good idea for her to go back alone. So, I reluctantly followed her back down to the riverbank. On our way back, we encountered the man from the truck. He roared like he had been bathing in a bath. "Have y'all seen my girlfriend?" His question was odd. They had been together in the truck before the woman approached us. This felt like a setup, straight out of a human trafficking scenario. Alarmed, we told him, "Yeah, she went that way." Pointing in the opposite direction of our fishing spot, he nodded and wandered off. I urged my friend to leave, baffled by her insistence that everything was fine. I was on high alert, half expecting the couple to charge at us with weapons. I scanned the area, noting that the rocks along the river could be used as potential defense and planning escape routes. The silence that set in was eerie. Maybe they left, or maybe they were waiting. About 10 minutes later, a blood-chilling scream echoed from upriver. It sounded like the woman from the truck. Terrified, we bolted into the forest away from the river and through the dense thicket. There was no trail, just a patch of trees parallel to the main path. The scream seemed to come from near the trail's entrance, so we couldn't risk heading that way. We came out of the tree and along the main road downstream from our cars, and we sprinted to them. We tossed our tangled-up fishing gear inside and locked our doors. As we caught our breath, we see the couple rushing back to their truck. I was honestly surprised to see that the woman was still alive. They glared at us before hopping into their truck and speeding off. My friend and I sat there and tried to process the whole ordeal, watching the road in shock. Minutes later, the old Silverado flew past us again, heading in the opposite direction. The woman was leaning out of the passenger window with her camera and she snapped another picture of us. My friend pulled out behind them and so did I, and we followed her. My friend recorded herself reciting the license plate number to remember it. The truck veered into back roads and eventually lost us. We drove to my grandmother's house nearby and told her everything. She agreed that we should call the police. An officer eventually came and took our statements, but I worried he didn't take us seriously. He said he would run the license plate, but we never heard back. I've always wondered who those people were and what they had planned. Somewhere there may be some photos of my friend and I awkwardly holding our fishing poles, possibly labeled with our names and ages pinned to a corkboard in a dark room. It was about a year after this happened that the Donald Ray Lance and the Jean K. White feather case became headline news around here. They were a couple who adopted 5 black children from a Minnesota shelter and forced them into labor as slaves on their property. The couple that we encountered were not them, but it does make me wonder what could have happened to us that day. The woman screaming could have been a ruse to get us somewhere so they could force us into the back of that Silverado. Our parents might have never known our fate, which still bothers me to think about. I've searched local news websites and online articles, but I found nothing about the couple we encountered that day. I still go fishing often, but I've never returned to that spot. Story 3, The Trip to Summersville Lake. It was late 2011. I was fresh out of high school, scraping by as a bus boy at a small diner in Washington, D.C. before college kicked in that January. My buddy Alex, who I've been tight with since middle school, and myself decided to shake off a city grind with a weekend getaway. Some friends of ours had rented a cabin in the backwoods of West Virginia, tucked in the hollers near Summersville Lake, about a 3-hour drive from the Beltway. It was supposed to be bonfires, brews, and fishing. Sounded like a good time. We piled into my 2013 Honda Accord. It looked like a piece of, but it ran perfectly. It had a collection of CDs I'd spin on long drives. I was really into Dark Throne back then. The drive started easy, the Beltway crawl into I-66, then west through the Shenandoah haze. But as the sun began to set around p.m., we missed a turn at a sketchy unmarked fork and ended up going down the wrong way. Yes, we made a wrong turn in West Virginia. The irony is not lost on me. The GPS was no help. I figured we were in some kind of dead zone. Neither of our phones were cooperating either. Ah, screw it. Let's just see what's at the end of the road, Alex said. As we snaked deeper into the forest, the pavement gave way to gravel that crunched like teeth under our tires. The sky darkened and the hill lights became the only sources of light. There were no street lights, no houses, just endless pine trees bordering the road. Then the road pinched into a single lane, flanked by a barbed wire fence. A faded signpost was lit up by the beams. Private property trespassers will be prosecuted. Slow down. This might be it. I hope you're right. Having a double-barrel shotgun go up my ass is not on the bucket list. We rounded the bend and came to a clearing. There was a faint porch lamp on a rundown cabin that looked like it had been gnawed by termites. Clothes lines stretched between crooked poles. One of the lines appeared to have several carcasses dangling from it. At first, I thought it was a hunter's hole, but as we crept closer, the beam swept over the hanging bodies, and my breath caught in my throat. I'll admit that I'm not used to seeing skinned and gutted deer torsos, but there was something about the body at the end of the line that broke me. It seemed different from the others, human-like, or at least it used to be before someone hacked off the arms and opened up the chest. I knew this was completely when I felt bile rising in my throat. I had to look away and regain my senses. I don't recall seeing a head, by the way. Holy, is that a person? Alex whispered. I didn't say a word. I quickly put the car into reverse and slammed down on the gas pedal, backing away from the closed lines. I had to make a 3-point turn to get out of there because there was no way I was going back down that narrow dirt road in reverse. However, in my panic, I didn't pay attention and the back of my car crashed into a couple of drum barrels. What was that? I don't care. We're getting out of here. When I put the car back into drive and sped toward the dirt road, I swear I saw a figure standing next to a shed about 15 yards away from us. I only saw it for a brief second because we were hauling ass out of there. Alex was so freaked out he started babbling nonsense while I white-knuckled the wheel. My vision tunneling. Whoever was standing next to the shed didn't chase us. I was expecting an arrow in the tires with the headlights of a pickup truck closing in behind us. If we actually saw a dismembered body hanging from a line, I doubt whoever did that would want us talking to the police. We barreled back the way we came from and made our way out to the highway. As soon as a bar signal flickered on my phone, we pulled over to the side of the road. My hands were shaking as I dialed 911. After I relayed what happened, a police cruiser slowly rolled up behind us a short time later. If you were passing by on the highway, you would have thought we'd have been pulled over. We explained everything. I remember being embarrassed about my voice cracking. They listened to our story with blank faces, then exchanged a skeptical look. The older officer spoke up. "Sounds like you boys stumbled onto Old Man Harrove's spread. He's a hunter. Been at it for 40 years. And that body was probably a gutted buck. There's been no reports of missing folk around here. I'd know about it. The shadows played tricks in the hollers. Or maybe y'all just been hit in the sauce." I insisted that the disemboweled body I saw looked human, but the officers laughed it off. "Look, y'all just got a bit turned around is all. Stay on Route 19 next time." He then gave us a patronizing warning about trespassing fines and told us to be safe. We drove the rest of the way in silence. There were no follow-ups. On the flip side, we ended up having a great time at the cabin and even used our experience to entertain the rest of the group when it came time to sit around the fire and tell ghost stories. Despite what you may have heard about West Virginia, it really is a scenic sanctuary. Looking back all these years later, I stand by what I saw, and so does Alex. I've seen more pictures of hanging animal remains than I care to admit. And I'm telling you, we saw the body of someone who met a gruesome fate. I don't know who it was, but what we saw that night was the conclusion to one of the many missing person cases in rural West Virginia. There's always a reason to be afraid. Really scary stories, every day. Subscribe, like if you like, turn on the bell so you don't miss new videos.